Welcome to Ear to the Common Ground, a place where all Americans have a seat at the table and come together through music and food inside a historic barn on Cash Lane in Music City. Right, left, and center, black, white, and brown, urban, suburban, and rural. Everyone brings a dish, and we talk about the issues of the day with just one rule: replace contempt and conflict with compassion and empathy, and keep our hearts, minds, and ears attuned to the common ground.
The polarization that we have and the way that it's come across, it just seems so binary. You know what I mean? And it's like a zero-sum game, and it's not a zero or it's a one. And we've been reduced to zeros and ones. And we've been, TV ratings reduce us to zeros and ones. The internet clickbait reduces us to zeros and ones. And that's fine, that's their game, but that's not who we are. And I was curious about just open this up for everybody, just like about the topic of polarization. Like, why do we think it has gotten this bad? And because it's like almost the universe expanding. It's getting faster and further away from each other. And like it's inflationary.
It's social media, man.
So go ahead, Dan.
Well, yeah, my dream for this gathering is that after we're done, that whenever we see each other again, that we will all wave at each other using all fingers.
That'd be a start,
for
wouldn't
tonight,
it?
yeah. That's my dream.
What do you say,
Well, they
Mike?
always said, don't talk about politics or religion, right? That was what, don't do that. But now, with social media, everybody has a platform. Everyone is their own, Fox News. Everyone can do whatever they want. They can spread whatever propaganda they believe. And if you know the outright algorithm, people will see it. So everyone's opinion is out there.
Well, it used to be that you'd sit and watch the nightly news, and everybody watched the same 3 channels, and you had one newspaper in town and a couple national ones, and you might have somebody coming from a little bit of the right and somebody coming from a little of the left, but you might know somebody for 10 years and never knew what their political views were.
Right.
And now, you're right, Facebook, and just all social media has put it so front and center, and we all see it. And then the other thing is it's a feedback loop that if I just clicked on Facebook, basket weaving, all it would show me was 18th century basket weaving, right? But if you click, and I've done it because I have friends all across the spectrum, and I see some stuff they post on there. Don't recognize the news sources that they have, but I click on it and then it'll send me more stuff. And that's on both sides.
Yeah.
And both of the ads are geared towards inflaming me.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
geared towards pushing a button and putting me in a binary place of being one or the
Put you
other.
on the defensive.
And from a philosophical standpoint, I think that the separateness of humans is an illusion. We're one. We are one. And you can be one, like you said, you come from a event, one in Christ, one in America, one in Buddha, one in Judaism, whatever, one in America, and one is a human. But that's not how everything has been set up. And it seems like it's getting faster and faster. Echo?
When the COVID was coming out, so last January, I caught it maybe quicker than everybody else because I work in the security field. And December and January, I was hoping this could unite United States.
Right.
America will combine and put the united front and fight against the COVID.
That hasn't happened.
We have to create, and you try to legislate and tell everybody what they can and cannot do, which, whether you're a hillbilly from West Virginia or military brat or grown up in the Cove, we just want to live in our holler, and you do you and I'll do me. And you know what? If somebody tries to hurt you, somebody tries to take away you or your partner's life or anything, most of the time the Americans, the patriots, stand in the gap for it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? And we've lost the common ground.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone and got in a foxhole, and then even now some of the foxholes are shooting amongst themselves in the thing. And so
I agree with you. I think what's happened is that people don't understand what the Constitution is and how it's all supposed to work because they've believed the propaganda that's even worse now than when I was believing it. You know, the Constitution works and it's brilliant. It's when politicians try to pervert it and twist it around that we get in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love is I heard a very astute leader say that, you know, we're a work in progress. That's why there's a lot of amendments to the Constitution. And I think we have to remember that. There's amendments to the Constitution because there are things that needed to be fixed. And that's why we are, as a young country, a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's what we have to remember.
But when's the last amendment? That's what they quit doing. They quit following the rules, and it's become a career. Politics
well,
are career.
That's a very good point.
It's become a career. I know.
What amendment do you think that they're missing?
No, I'm not saying that they're missing an amendment, but I'm saying that as a society, that I'm seriously probably one of the most anti-government person. Not going to find me in Waco, I promise. And Mike, you don't have to worry about over there on the farm. But you know, my mom is in politics. But you know, they have a rule that says you either go into politics with good intentions and you come home, or you turn into part of the problem. And you can't have, that's a service. And nothing goes against me more to hear a man say, I'm a public servant, when, no, public servants would go up there and do it for free. Public servants would show up there and do a thing, and we try to make the government take the place of, I believe in God.
I agree.
And I believe that 100% of my heart that his son died for me and I'm saved. And if I didn't tell you that, then how can I really believe that at all if I'm not going to share it? If I'm not going to tell you the truth? What I believe, I don't believe you have to be a Christian. You can't. God created us a volitional creature. He loved us enough, says you can make your own decisions. I don't want to force you, and you don't have to. And that doesn't mean you're less of a person. It doesn't mean I'm more of a person. It doesn't mean you're right or I'm wrong. Everybody's got their own opinion, and none of us will know until our life here is over. And so, but does it matter our interaction on this common ground? Not one bit. It's like you said with the family is, I love you regardless.
Yes.
If
And
you're a
that's
Tennessee
enough.
Vol fan or you're an Auburn fan, you know what I'm saying? I love you with God, but love is wanting what's best for someone. Not, my kid, what they wanted to eat. Joe's got little kids. What they want is not what they need. It's two different things. And so I don't understand why we have lost the ability that says, well, you can't believe that. Why? Why can't I believe that? You can believe what you want to believe. Why can't I believe what I want to believe? I don't believe that I should force mine on you, and you shouldn't force yours on me. I want you to.
I do believe that COVID hit and we all turned to government.
Yes.
So when you say, oh, we don't need government in our business, wait till we need government
Yes.
in our
That's
business.
good
And I
point.
think that's the point too, that there's a place for government. You know? I don't think we can just tack the Constitution on the door of this barn and say, that's it, we're good.
Job's done.
I mean, job's done. There's a rule of law. I think that's part of what Congress's job is, whether it's environment or whether it's COVID that we're dealing with this pandemic. The government needs to step in. There's opportunities there for them to step in and
And mess
help.
it up.
Well,
Oh, not necessarily.
sometimes
Not
they mess
necessarily,
it up.
but here's what I've always.
You made the point that I was just getting ready to make, is that's something that we all tend to do, is we talk about the government like it's not us.
Yeah.
When it does something that you don't like, but when it's doing something that you do like, oh, that's my government. And it's us all the way through. How you feel about the status quo depends upon your status. The Constitution is not perfect for her.
Yes, and that's
It
what I
has
was
not,
getting to,
it's not
yes.
Independence Hall.
That's correct.
That's correct. No,
But we've
wait,
said
no.
it's perfect.
The Constitution is perfect for her.
We're just
But
not.
let me just finish this one sentence.
Okay.
But the way men applied it, the way that it was turned, just like you say, the status quo, just because that
Well, that
document,
means it's still
that
being
document says-
perfected.
Well, no, but I'm saying all people. Last time I checked, she's a person. I'm a person. You're a person. So there's things that are good documents that people pervert, that people have changed in laws have done. I'm not saying that we are a perfect society. I'm not saying that we're a perfect government. But I'm saying, how many times have you stretched a dime into 2 quarters, right?
A lot.
A lot. And so, who accomplishes more with less is people with a passion.
Well, the Amtrak Crescent is a northbound train. When you can't afford to stay no more in New Orleans. So I bought the cheapest ticket and I carried my clothes. And the blood beneath my eyes from a broken nose. 'Cause when life goes wrong, it just goes on and on. When life goes wrong, the train rolls on. Well, there ain't no ham like Birmingham to make a fella wanna stay in Alabama. But I crossed into Georgia into Eastern time, and I dare to eat a peach and take it off my mind. That when life goes wrong, it just goes on and on. When life goes wrong, it just drags on. Somewhere between right and wrong, somehow I've managed to keep moving on, searching for any place but where I am, and a first and second chance. 'Cause at a stop in Charlotte, found a Hog's Leg joint. It seemed like forever till we reached High Point. Now Lynchburg to Danville is a ghost-filled rail. If you listen, you can hear the engineer's wife wail. That when life goes wrong, it just goes on and on. When life goes wrong, it just drags on. Virginia, you don't get along with anyone. But just across the river, you can change your tune, like all the sons of bitches up in D.C. do. When life goes wrong, it just go on and on. When life goes wrong, you listen to them just drag on. Somewhere between right and wrong, somehow I've managed to keep moving on, searching for any place but where I am, at a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth chance. You know, it used to be pretty on the Eastern Shore. Now it's more New York down to Baltimore. It takes so much effort just to move one train. Why does everything around me have to look the same? Like when life goes wrong, it just goes on and on. When life goes wrong, it just drags on. When life goes wrong, it just drags on and on and on and on and on and on. Seth Hopper on the fiddle there.
I think the breakdown is if whatever issue it is, if it doesn't affect you personally, you probably don't care about it. And I think that's where a lot of things really like break down. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
I think
makes sense.
gay rights, I think abortion, I think a lot of hot topics as far as things that are divisive for us, I think unless you know someone, I think that's really going to be what separates you. Black Lives Matter, I think that's a great, you hear all lives matter. Well, great. That's the same thing as your partner or your spouse saying, do you love me, babe? And they go, I love you, but I love everybody. So there needs to be a time in our society where we go, where we say, thank you, my fiance gave me that credit. So there has to be a time, I think, in our society where we go, just because this does not affect me directly, I still care about it. And
that's empathy,
I think that's
right?
a great
That's
thing.
empathy. That's compassion, Charlotte.
That's what I was gonna say is we've been in an empathy crisis for years.
Yes.
And I just was having a conversation with my mom because there's people within our family that don't feel the same way.
Right.
And what they do on Facebook and how, certain parts of our family might take that personal and it's like not really personal. And I've sat there and gone, we got to come together. Just because somebody has a different view or can see things from a different perspective doesn't mean they're against you.
Right.
And I think about that not just as it relates to politics, just like in conversation. So we've got fear, and we've got fear on
People are
both
afraid of
both
people who are not like
sides.
them.
Yeah.
And that's human
we're
nature, by
fed
the
that.
way.
Well,
Yeah.
I never will
that.
forget one time I was in Northern Ireland, and I was in Glenariff, and there was Glenarm, and there was a little town, and they were separated by about a mile. And we go to the guy in Glenariff, how do we get over to Glenarm? Oh, what would you want to go there for? Those folks are queer up there.
Yeah.
It didn't mean queer gay, it just meant queer weird. In other words, they're not like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if that's human nature. And it's like we all struggle against our human nature in so many ways, and it can be monetized, Dan.
Well, yeah, and going back to my first point, we are being fed information, and no matter what our belief system is, that each one of us is under attack.
Right.
So that's, we are, whatever our belief system is, there are people out to get you, and that alarms everybody. And one thing I would like us to re-embrace as a culture is that conflict doesn't have to be defined by the initiator. It is really defined by the recipient. If somebody's coming at you with bullshit and you allow yourself to go there, then they have defined your conflict, but you don't have to. If somebody comes at you with alarm stuff and all this stuff to manipulate you and get your dollars, if you can step back and be calm and not regurgitate all that crap, you've redefined the conflict. So that's who defines conflict.
Echo, talk about that for a second.
I think we're a passionate people. We're such a passionate group of people.
Right.
Everybody in our country has such passion. When I say we stand up for what is right and what we believe in, well, that's all great, but we're standing up for different things that we believe is right, and we're so passionate about it that we make each other angry and crazy and
You don't have to make others angry.
But
right?
and it's unnecessary.
Say that.
You can
Now, the conflict argument is always up front. They don't listen, and they don't give credit to the different opinions from yours. So you're always fighting and trying to diminish the other side.
Right.
That's not right.
Trying to win.
Yeah, that's not winning.
It's a zero-sum game. Right. So Taylor, what do you talk about that?
Well, my father, when I was a child, he said, he told me this later. He said, when you were kids, he said, you know how I got y'all do what I want you to do? He said, I give you two choices that work for me. And I believe that, like, for instance, if you're at dinner and it's like, well, is it spaghetti or is it hot dogs?
Right.
Well, I have spaghetti and hot dogs in the fridge. So you're not going to get hamburger tonight because I don't have hamburger. I'm not going to offer you hamburger. So he would offer you two things that worked for him. And sometimes I look at this and I go, Democrat or Republican? I feel like I've been offered two things.
But my political background, I guess, or starting came from when I moved to Cookeville and I went to school at Tennessee Tech. Cookeville is extremely small and quaint, and a little bit of good old boy. And Chattanooga's very like open and progressive in a lot of areas. And so the very first day that I got to Cookeville, I was actually walking. School hadn't even started, class had not even started, and people made monkey sounds at me, like walking. First day. So it was from that moment where you kind of have to decide, what do I believe? What am I into? Where am I at? And you have to be very aware of your surroundings at that point. And so a lot of my beliefs come from the treatment of people in general, and especially my people, Black and brown people, minorities in general, and just the disadvantaged in general. So that's where a lot of my beliefs come from. I don't lean either way. I'm kind of in the middle, just kind of get the job done. Like, what are we doing to support and help our people in general? So
I am mortified about
Of any hometown in
it.
America.
My parents absolutely would have just annihilated us if anything had happened like that.
Did somebody come to your
absolutely-
defense?
we were just walking to the gas station.
I mean, it's just
and it was just a
horrible,
car
Taylor.
driving by. So
So do you think the Constitution represented
no,
your people?
No. So that's the thing, is you've got rules like the 3/5 rule, and yes, it was amended, and yes, that's fixed, but that creates a mass amount of mistrust amongst an entire race of people. And so those are generational. That goes when you are slaves. That is not something, yes, I set you free and tomorrow you forget it. Those are children who grew up in that time who had children, and those are generational issues. So you can say it's not perfect and it's amended, but to this day, I don't make as much money as any of you at this table. There's a good chance I never will, unless I create it on my own. And those are constitutional things as far as health.
Is that the same for everybody at the table?
Is anybody else brown?
No.
I make
First off,
62
women
cents
tend
on the
to make
dollar.
about 25% less than men overall. That's the statistic. Most
and then
women usually make about
African
25% less.
Men make a great
And
deal
then
less. I'm not
women
gonna
of
say great deal,
color
but
make
yes,
even less.
Even
Same
less,
job,
correct.
but they'll be paid less.
Correct.
But is that the government's job to do that, or is that our job? Ask the government.
That's our job.
And we are the government that fixes it.
That's our job as the people.
That's right. That's the common ground.
Lo Siento, Spanisburg, West Virginia. Lo Siento, Spanisburg, West Virginia. Well, the TV's off 'cause there's nothing on. All the hometown fans are in the stands since the team won state 'cause the coach was great. Then they hired him down in Peterstown, but he didn't win. Now he's back again. The next batch of kids could not commit. They were big enough, but not that tough, and thought the single wing was just a passing thing. I guess the will to win is oft forgotten when old times there are Oxycontin. Lo Siento, Spanisburg, West Virginia. Lo Siento, Spanisburg, West Virginia. Well, the jobs were lost and the war it cost. This kid came back from Iraq, had it pretty comfy 'cause he drove a Humvee for an old diehard of the National Guard. Thought he was safe, though the town guide strafed on occasional mortar from across the border. He'd always joke in the emails he wrote and tell his mom not to worry none. He was spending his time on winning hearts and minds until he picked up a can and he lost his hands. Lo Siento, Spanisburg, West Virginia. Lo Siento, Spanisburg, West Virginia. Then a writer came from a magazine and wrote the whole town up for the AARP. Called it #1 place to retire, so the rich folks came and the taxes got higher. With their healthy hair and their perfect spouses, they built these mansions and giant cow palaces. Now the effete and the elite are all walking around with their noses up as they look down on the people born who cannot afford to live in their own town no more. Los Cientos. They even renamed it Spanish Trace, West Virginia. That ain't right. Lo siento. Spanish West, by God, Virginia. Smile when you say that. Come on.
What can we do?
Get out of your
What would
comfort
you say,
zone.
like Melissa, if you were going to
Is
take
it too
one,
late to turn it around? I don't know. That's a good question.
if there was one thing that you could do to change this country for the positive, if you were granted Empress Melissa for one day and what you said went, what would it be?
I think it would be, to echo what Echo and I spoke about earlier, would to be to listen to the soul.
Amen.
I think that's what it comes back to. And that's, very blanket, but I think clearly there are so many issues that divide us. And I think that at the core, we do have very same interests and we all believe the same. Again, I guess I'll just come back to my brothers and sisters that love differently than me, that look differently than me, that worship differently than me. There has to be some space in the narrative in our society for those people. And if there's not, as much as I love America, and I am proud to be an American, I want to say that, I am. It concerns me that we have not carved out enough space for people different than us.
Right.
Well, that's the whole point.
And that's the point of America. It's literally founded on differences.
Right. It's our most interesting point.
Well,
Yes.
I
It's
think
our
that
most interesting.
the public discourse, we've had people for many, many years now who have tried to eliminate a spiritual discussion from the public discourse because you might offend someone. And that's crazy to me.
Right.
If you can't talk about your faith, whatever it is,
Right.
if you can't talk about it, you're cutting yourself off the source of power. What do you have to say? Well, where do you get the power for that belief? What is it? So I would like us to be able to tolerate each other's spiritual discussions in the public discourse. I just think that's crazy.
And why not? And talk about that, Taylor.
I think, okay, I feel like growing up, I was taught, don't ever talk religion and politics.
Yeah, crazy.
And now at 31 years old, I look around, I go, these are the two things we should have been talking about.
And we don't know how
as far
to,
as in
Taylor.
tables like this.
Yeah, we
so
don't
now
know
we're
how to.
incapable of it and we're
Yeah.
intolerant of it.
Exactly.
So, and they're two, in my opinion, very important issues. One being the most important, and one being right there with it as far as in a lifetime, and we've been sort of indoctrinated not to do that. And I believe it's sort of a bait and switch type of thing of just shut them up and make it taboo to talk about it. Then we can do whatever we want.
And we don't learn how to talk about it with others.
We're talking about these paths, success and what struggles people might have. But what about, and Taylor's the only African American at the table, and we're already bringing this up, and it's obviously a hot topic at this time. But I mean, when a group of people who is crying out for help or saying they have an issue, what is causing us? Why is it a versus instead of a listen? Does anybody have thoughts on that? Why are we not hearing the issue or listening or talking about why is it a fight or a battle?
Because we've already dug ourselves into our foxholes. We're living in such a polarized society today. We're already in our foxhole. And whatever you say as a woman of color, I'm putting a roadblock up because I don't want to hear it. I've already got my opinions formed. So I think that's part of our trouble until we find this common ground that we can come to the table and talk about and say, you know what, I want to hear you. I want to hear what you're saying. How can I help make a difference? what you were saying is church and community.
Yes.
Well, church and community, step up.
Yeah.
I see a lot of churches in a lot of communities that are not stepping up. Part of the reason is they don't have the resources to step up. I mean, they can love you, they can support you,
big buildings.
but what can they do in especially rural communities like where I live?
That's right.
You know, my Church of Christ that I go to, you know, we've got 65 or 70 folks there.
Right.
You know, and there's
And there's
community
great
is there
need.
to support us. Church is there to support us, but really, what can we do? I mean, you know, put our money where our mouth is. There's not a lot of that to go around, to be honest with you. So I think that's where government has to step up to the plate and say, how can we help the community of color make a difference? Or how can we help Latinos in the community make a difference? How can we help young men that are white men that are coming out of school looking for a trade? How can we help them? And I'm not saying the government's answer to everything, but the government allows a lot of opportunities. Supportive unions that you mentioned. If there wasn't a union there, Uncle Woodrow at the coal mine, you know, where would he have been?
He might have rode the conveyor belt out.
Well,
So-
let's just say when you were, I've had a lot of union discussions. I've been in a lot of unions throughout my life. But let's just say the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild is the easy one. But when it was up to coal mining, it was life or death. It
Yeah.
wasn't
No.
an opinion or it wasn't politics. It was you're either going to walk out or you're going to die there.
Or you're going to ride the conveyor. That's
So,
right.
so I'm going to follow that point, what you're saying there. So back at Highlander Folk School, we talked about that earlier. You've got a stake in that, and my family's been a part of that over the years too. And when unions were formed in this country, it was for life or death.
It was to help people.
Now we're at a junction in our country where Black Lives Matter movement has stepped up. But that's where the government stepped in place and said, we're going to allow unions, we're going to listen to you, we're going to come to the bargain table. People of color, the same thing possibly. You know, let's listen, let's put our ears on. People are dying at the hands of other people in this country. Now we've got to, as a people, step up and listen and say, how can we make a difference? What can we do? It's not going to be perfect, but what can we do to make it better?
Well, I actually think the first step is acknowledgement. You know, if we all are saying, well, it could have been this way and it could have been that way and they should have done this and they should have done that, we'll just never get anywhere. We'll just never get anywhere. It doesn't matter, you know, what your religion is. It doesn't matter. Whatever your stance is, if you say the law is do not do X, Y, and Z and you go do X, Y, and Z, the results should be clear. And the problem is that there's a lot of people saying it's conditional. You can't pick and choose when the law is conditional. And so until everybody is on the same page of we're going to accept it or we're not, and this is our course of action, then we can have all the communities and car washes we want. But if everybody's like, oh, it's all right over here, and over here in Florida, we'll let them do whatever, and over here in Virginia, we'll let them do whatever, and we'll just never get anywhere. Because the fact of the matter is there is a great deal of, yes, the Black Lives Matter is very prominent right now, but this is not new. I want people to understand, like, this did not start in 2018, 2019. Like, Trayvon Martin, yes, it happened, but Emmett Till happened first. Like, this is not a new movement. People have been begging. There were slave revolts there. This has been a history of an entire race and ethnicity. This is a people who have been crying out. The way they are crying out is fairly different, but if you look at history, it's not really different because, to your point, as you said earlier, when you hit that economy, stuff starts changing. So,
That's right.
Which is why people are looting. And yes, there's, you know, call it what it is, but in my book, in my personal opinion, there's not enough targets they can rob to touch the justice that is deserved in a great deal of ways. Like, people are dying. There's no breath in their body. There's no home to go home to. There's family losing people. So it's great to acknowledge that communities are there for support, but if we do not acknowledge the issue, how do you know what to do? How do you know what to fix?
On the road to Spotsylvania, the sky grew dark and mean. When they placed you in the line, you could not see a goddamn thing, but it smelled like it might rain. And the rain should bring life, boys, or at least brief respite. You can rest and wait for night, boys, but keep your powder dry, or the rain will take your life. Through the trees I heard them coming by the clank of their canteens. And since the rain softened the drum heads, you could hear the orders screamed. There they are, boys, make 'em bleed. Well, I took aim at no one really, but just a shape that caught my eye. And each time I pulled the trigger, there was no kick. She did not fire. I did not keep my powder dry. And the rain, it should bring life, boys, or at least a brief respite. You can rest and wait for night, boys, but keep your powder dry, or the rain will take your life. We had never been so close as to look them in the eye. And some threw rocks and cursed the devil while we waited there to die. Me, I pissed myself and cried that the rain, it should bring life, boys, or at least a brief respite. You can rest and wait for night, boys, but keep your powder dry, or the rain will take your life. Oh, thank you.
It's a smoked salmon sushi.
Ooh, yes.
And fresh salmon is hard to come by,
Yes,
and some
ma'am.
people don't like it. So, you do. And the rice has a small sesame seeds in it. And I prepared the soy sauce for you in the jars
Thank you.
if you need them. I hope you enjoy it.
Bless you.
This is just the way my mother made fried chicken. You soak it in buttermilk and you put it in flour and you
That's the
cook
way
it.
to make it.
And
Squash
but the key to
casserole.
it is you start with good chicken. I like organic. That's the
Amen.
way it goes.
Squash casserole, it's the first casserole I've ever made in my whole life. So,
That's dance?
yeah,
It's
that
that
right
one?
there. So, oh gosh, I'm sorry.
This is very familiar and makes me
So you
happy.
know, Todd, I think the only way to understand people of different cultures who are different than you is to spend time with them.
Truth.
Yes. And we have chosen, we talked about the need to be right, and how
Yes.
important that is for so many people. And we have to sometimes choose, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
I choose happy.
Making a choice.
I choose happy.
Right?
I'll take happy.
To sit there and go, okay, well, I'm in my head, well, I want to be right and I want to be happy. You know? If I'm right, I'm happy. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can continue on that.
I like what you're
thought.
speaking to. You're talking about the ego right now, and I love that.
It is the ego, and sometimes we just have to stop for a second and just go, oh, the world is bigger than I am. The universe is bigger than, and may something
Duality
happen.
is an illusion, period. And as a country and binary, but
Yes.
philosophically as a human, there isn't me in you. The ego, let it dissolve in your own personal life, and you see it all as one. And you can do that as a Buddhist, a Jewish, or a Christian. Or any religion. They can all come to the same truth. But sometimes I think that it's a genetic thing. And what I mean by that is I sort of sometimes look at conservative and progressive as the way you're born. An example, I have a brother that all he ever wanted to be when he was 5 was 4 again, just for one more day. He's nostalgic. I am progressive. I'm optimistic. And I sometimes look at people, take all the polarization bullshit aside, it's like some people, I think, are sort of conditioned psychologically to being realists. And other people are conditioned to being idealists. And there's nothing wrong with either. So when I was younger and I would look at it, I think sometimes somebody that's a progressive looks at the world as it is and says, yes, but it could be so much better. And a realist would look at it and say, oh, Todd, bless your heart. And I remember talking to people that were conservative when I was young, and I was an idealist, and I was, oh, we got to do this and that. Oh, bless your heart. And they were just like, they just viewed it from a realistic, the conservative viewpoint didn't care less about people or this or that or the other. They just came from it from a more maybe pragmatic way.
Right.
And I think that if you look at it psychologically in terms of optimism and pragmatism or realism, or that's really what I hear when I read a lot of conservative thought, is people that they do tend to like things the way they've been. They're not wanting to see things progress too much. Having said that, on social issues, they need to progress. History's moving forward. But then somebody like me might say, well, yeah, but let's move it forward on the environment. Let's move it forward on. So there's so many things that I feel progressive about, yet, should we have a balanced budget? Hell yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Should we have a flat tax for everybody? Hell yeah, you should. Should you make corporations pay the same thing as Johnny works at the gas station? Hell yeah, you should. I think it's just I think it's simple, but it's made complex by the polarization of it.
Who brought the pork?
I did.
Oh my gosh, Betty. Tell me about this.
This is a very Cuban dish. It is lots of garlic.
Yes.
Oregano, cumin, and that's it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And sour orange.
What is a sour orange? Is it just...
So I get a regular orange. In Miami and in Cuba, there's a sour orange tree.
Okay.
We've never seen it. But to mimic that flavor, I use a grapefruit and orange juice.
Together.
Mike, did you grow this okra? Is this your okra?
Well, my dad grew the okra. So that's always a southern staple during the summertime. Is fried okra. Have you tried grilled okra?
I love
Yes,
I
my
love
favorite.
Grilled, pickled,
Yeah.
sauteed.
Pickled?
Oh, I love pickled okra.
I'm a texture guy.
I know.
I like the taste, but it's sort of like oysters.
I know, right?
I let somebody taught me I need oyster. I said, there's some people that are hungry in the world to be the first one to crack an oyster and said, I'm just going to eat it. I'm going to eat it right now.
Well, I love it.
This is a good idea because they always say the common ground is always around food.
I love to eat. Love to eat.
And music.
Ever since we crawled out of the slime, or were made people by the divine, before the Irish made Irish stew, we've had to watch out for the people who rule. Presidents, kings, czars, and potentates, I've Stephen the Terrible and Catherine the Great, Napoleon, Genghis, Ramses 1 and 2. We always remember the people who rule. The history of mankind is brutish and short, but evident truth should stand up in court. Whether your state or commonwealth is red or it's blue, always be wary of the people who rule. That's all you said. It's just my opinion. But for what it's worth, someday the meek shall inherit the earth. Then we gotta worry about the meek too. There's something with power and the people who rule.
It's an old famous quote. When asked, how do we help others? There is no other.
That's right. That's
The
it.
other is us. There is no other.
That's exactly right.
How you don't help others, we're all there, but how do you want for people rather than from them?
That's a good question.
How do you want for everyone that you speak with? How do you want for them rather than from them? And what when we start these conversations, what just went on here, whether it was intentional or not, felt like it was a tug, like if something's coming for me, it puts an inequality. It's like we're on a seesaw.
Okay.
And the
yeah.
fact of the matter is, if we both start out looking and we see ourselves as the other, how do I want for you rather than from you in the beginning for
Yeah.
everything that you want?
Right. No,
Where you start.
exactly is.
But you know what? I will always in my life be someone who believes, and I feel very privileged because I'm a white person, but I will be empathetic and stand up for anyone of color and anyone of special needs and anyone who does not have a voice, including those marginalized rural people who are not heard and are not seen and live in the mountains and have virtually nothing. And I think we have to, as an American population, look at each other and say, hey, we are more alike than different. We are more alike than different, and we need to be together. We need to pull each other together and lift each other up.
And I think this will be very controversial, but in a way, I think we've sent the message that men are disposable. And that may shock you to hear, but if you look at the statistics, men die younger than women. The number of suicides in adult males, it's unbelievable.
That is true.
The number of suicides overall is white male adults. It's like 8 out of 10.
But do you really feel like
So-
you're in a minority group right now? Do you
What do you
really
mean?
feel that way as far as like in our society as a white male? Do you really feel like you're oppressed? Or
Understand your point. I'm just trying to say that men we've kind of been given the message that we're not really needed. Women can even have babies
and that's hard for
without
me to
us.
hear you say that. Like
Yeah.
that is hard to hear that you feel that way as
Yeah.
far as like, but when you look at like the platform of, clearly you know a lot about history and what we've been through. It's hard for me to
just
hear
think
that
about
from
it.
you when you think about it and when you look at where you are as a white male to look at the
White
platform.
Caucasian Christian male, which is
Yeah.
all evil, 100% evil.
Oh, I don't think that way. I don't think that way at all.
I've got gay
It's just
kids.
hard for me to. That's awesome. It's just hard for me to hear that you feel that way because truly there are a lot of really great men in this world, white, black, all different colors, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to hear you say that. But again, when I hear you like look at the platform of our society right now, that you still feel like somehow it's hard for me to understand, I guess. It's hard for me to understand.
Okay, well, I don't feel oppressed. I do feel disposable.
Can I ask a question? Like, if there was like a feeling that, as far as like, and I hear what you're saying, as far as like just this, you know, which it must be hard to be a white man right now, like especially if you care about people and you're. So, if there is a thought that we could bring to that group, what would it be? What do you need the most right now? What do you need the most as far as like what to feel?
God bless you, Melissa. That's very sweet. Because mostly we just get slugged. You know, you're the cause of everything that's wrong in America. What do we need? Appreciation for the good men in our culture, while at the same time we get rid of racism and male on female crime, and there are a lot of bad things we need to get rid of, but we seem to generalize too much and throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I would say tone down the dialogue about that men are bad for our society, especially white guys, but, you know, tone that down a little bit and let's be a little more compassionate to each other, look for the good in each other and celebrate that a little more. That's how I feel. I may have irritated some of you, but...
Thank you for sharing that.
I think that we need to see more white male role models.
Yes.
Because so many times what we're seeing is...
But they don't make the news. They're there. They don't make the news because it doesn't sell papers.
Yeah.
Good things don't make news.
Right, go ahead.
Good things and good people don't make news.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, that's what I like to say.
Echo.
Before we go any further, I think that it's important that we, in terms of our religious dialogue and stuff, since we're living in the South, that we pay homage and honor like they did in The Lion King, this symbol of all that is good, which would be banana pudding. Oh,
I've been a Scott Miller fan a long time, and you know, a storyteller's a storyteller, and that's what I love about my favorite type of music is a great storyteller. But I believe Scott to be on and I say this is the highest possible praise, but I mean, if John Prine has ascended into heaven, which I think he has, Scott Miller's here on earth right now, and I love John, and he's a hero. And Jason Isbell is great, and so many, Margot Price lives here, so many wonderful musicians. But Scott is somebody that, and he's got a couple of songs. One of them, I hope he plays tonight, is called "Freedom is a Stranger," and it's a different metaphors working. One of them is he's talking about getting a car and going out with the girl, because when you're a kid, freedom's a stranger. You're tethered to your parents. Well, you get out in that old Chevy Citation, you're driving around, and you got a girl with you, and things might be happening or whatnot, and you move on from that, and it's a freedom thing. Then he talks about freedom when he's, now I got a mortgage and kids and carpool, and freedom's a stranger from him at that point, right? Mm. And he says they crushed the citation. We're such a complicated nation, but we still made rock and roll. And it's just like the power of music to bring people together. And I think freedom is a stranger for America right now. Just as it is to a kid that doesn't have a driver's license yet. Freedom has become a stranger to us. And I hate it. And I hope that it becomes more, I hope we get more free.
Back when freedom was a stranger, but it was something we felt. Well, I had myself a girlfriend. I couldn't believe it myself. We take a Chevy Citation, the one a friend would let us use, when we got tired of waiting for what we wanted to do. I had her crawling up the window. She had me shaking in my seat. I could smell her on my fingers. She said it tasted so sweet. Just some West Virginia back roads. There never was much else. Jam a tape into the player. I couldn't believe it myself. Well, the drums, they shook the speakers. The bass, it shook me to the core. If the boss had been a preacher, he could have led us to the Lord. She knew all the lyrics, and it sang so true. Just two rock and roll spirits with nothing better to do. Now the past, it is a stranger, and I found someone else. I got car payments and a mortgage. I can't believe it myself. But I don't mind getting older if you get smarter when you do. And the burdens at your shoulder, well, that's what defines you. Sure, they crushed the citation. I know the 8-track broke. We're such a complicated nation, but we still made it rock and roll. Rock and roll.
Amen, Scott. We are a complicated nation, but thank God for the music that brings us all together. In a time where rage is the rage of the day and opiates are the opiates of the masses, breaking some bread in a barn, well, it feels revolutionary. We hope you'll join us again, where we'll host another artist and their fans and keep the conversation, food, and music rolling on Ear to the Common Ground.
Virginia love and Alabama pride. Tennessee, those Mississippi eyes. Georgia peaches and her pie.